Well, if it's a day without sunshine, where would we be?
I don't know.
Penny,
Be in
Penny,
England, actually.
it's like an old glove. It's like an old glove, and despite any of the rumors that may have been
Oh, so I'm
floating,
I'm an old glove.
you, you still fit. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. We said we weren't going to be cheeky, and right out of the gate, we can't even help it.
I have a feeling I've just deleted myself from my channel.
No, you haven't at all. Actually, you are all set. I'm showing that we are now simulcast,
You
which
sure?
is you're
You
seeing.
sure? Are you sure I'm
That
on?
we are now simulcast,
Uh,
which is you're seeing. Are
I,
you sure I'm on? We are now simulcast.
excuse us, everybody, while we just attend to these technical sort of
Gosh,
things. But
this is
I
why
just
we have. This is why we have 3 hour shows. Just letting you know.
technical sort of. It says it's you. It doesn't seem to say it's me. Oh well, I don't understand. Anyway, okay.
Penny, we are currently streaming. By the way, somebody give a shout out to Penny's channel. Just say I'm on Penny's channel and I can see you. So, guys, you are on Penny. Look at that. Susan Fabian says, "Oh my gosh, here's
Hey,
the proof."
Susan.
Are
Oh,
here, here we are.
fantastic.
So one of the fun things, it's wonderful that you guys are jumping on. Laura, Sheila, amazing.
Laura.
Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
Shirley, hi.
We're going to get to some questions and answer stuff a little bit later. So hang in there. Make sure you kind of stay tuned to this. Connect the dots as you go along. Jot down some questions as you go. As we go along, we'll kind of save them for the last few minutes at the end. But and by the way, despite any rumors of the internet, Penny, Penny and I, Penny and I are still in a love triangle, and it's just the two of us. It's awesome. It's fantastic. So we're talking cheap about everything, but what's going on in the world? This is a common theme. If you've been seeing my channel, you heard me talking about it. Kind of American centric. Penny, certainly you have been, seeing it from the European side of it. And the magic of this kind of conversation is kind of doing the Venn and the diagram. And, with me again is Penny. Penny, how are you?
Good evening or good morning to you, but good evening for me. I'm doing really well. I have never been so busy in my life. As you know, I'm recovering or nearly recovered from the back surgery. And so it's all go for you and I now, Brandon. That's cool.
It's all
Sorry?
about the timing. It's all about the timing. So,
Yeah.
I really noticed that some things have been amiss. I mean, energetically, what we're dealing here in the U.S., we're so consumed with the nonsense of the non-political party and Trump and the Republicans and all that crap. And it's, and like the shiny new penny and Kamala and like not all this glitter isn't gold, but it's, when war has broken out, like don't kid yourself. This isn't just a couple of skirmishes anymore. Growing up hearing there was a bombing in Lebanon or something in Beirut, and you would hear these things and kind of be like, okay, here you go. The astrology, you and I have always, our bond is always this, like, it would be things like Hezbollah, Mars and Gemini. Like it would just like those are just our texts, just to let you guys know. But what's your feel from a European standpoint about this kind of worldview?
The reason I suggested to you that we focus on the hotspots of the world, being very careful about whom we mention, what we mention, because we are in a state of war, and I think we have to be very super mindful of what we actually say online, okay, because they pick up certain words. And so I'd like to say to everyone watching, we will not particularly talk about the names of countries that we're talking about astrologically. The country astrology chart will appear with to start with the new moon annular eclipse in Libra, the solar eclipse, because that started the whole show, basically, just over a week ago. And there are a few other things that are kind of coming. And we're also going to be looking at the full moon that comes a bit later this month, because I just feel these two are kind of significantly linked in. And yes, to talk about the energy for everyone, I think, has been exhausting,
Yeah,
extraordinary. I
agreed.
think there is a lot of fear-based thinking that goes round. What are you
Winner,
doing?
I'm
What?
pointing at you because you're dead on
What's
actor. Dead on actor. I'm twiddling you. What do you think? What do you think's going on here? Like I'm tickling you. Damn.
so romantic?
No, no, but it's and let's remind everybody, like there's always cycles, right? And there's always
Yeah,
duality. We're picking apart the new moon and the full moon here, just like we have eclipses.
yeah,
Kind of like we have eclipse season and one matches the other, and this one goes to this one, this one goes to that one. The Aries to the Libra one, which is what we're talking about now, and everything's going to be okay, guys. Everything we're about to say is going to make you go, oh my gosh. But I'm telling you, just like so long as the sun rises tomorrow, we're in good shape. We got a shot. That's the thing you have to remember with all of this. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that you don't have your bar exam tomorrow. It doesn't mean that you're not in the final, throes of that tough conversation. All of those things are kind of coming together. Do you want to jump in with a chart here?
yeah. I think so. And while you're drawing the chart up, I think it's also important to say that it's how it affects us on a personal level as well. These things, because if you sort of dilute the energy down to a personal level, a lot of people might have found they've been having issues with relationships, or people coming back into their life, or people leaving their life, or all sorts of deep and intense kind of communication to try and understand situations in relationships. So I think that energy is very much around too. And I think because of what has been unfolding in the Eastern Mediterranean, basically, and I'm in the Western part of the Mediterranean,
Right.
which is a little bit concerning. So I'm 2 hours from Cyprus. Cyprus is a country that has a British forces air base.
Yeah.
So, and we have in Malta, we have a big deep sea harbour in Valletta. It's one of the biggest natural deep water harbours in the world. And this was why it was so strategically important in the Second World War, because ships could come in here and fill up. And
Yeah.
the really big siege of Malta, because everyone wanted Malta, and Malta got bombed more than any other European city, interestingly.
Yeah. And it's, two points that you made that I think are amazing. On the personal side of it, the thing that I'm seeing though right now is people are literally having breakthroughs though. As much as there's been this challenge, like the personal breakthroughs and the personal fortitude, like big high five to people that are getting through it. You
Yeah.
know, and Penny and I have this like wonderful codependency of, oh, that's what's going on in your life. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, it's the astrology, and what have you. But it's also the dynamic. I'm truly seeing this. People facing their fears. People saying, that's it, I'm done. People
Yeah.
saying, I'm going to find that voice. And the astrology has really kind of helped that along. The second part is being in the unique position that you're in, literally kilometers away from where bombs are hitting is pretty significant to me. I don't think our meeting, I think actually the world events right now are actually part and parcel why we connected. So you have a front row there and I have a front row here.
Well, I think I did. I message you, or did you message me? No, I think I messaged you, and I
I
said,
give you full credit anyways.
I just messaged you, and I said we've got to do a show.
Yeah.
This is it.
We,
Here we are. Here we are. With it within 2 weeks, we've set it up, and
so
I think we should.
listen, I'm giving you full credit on that, but I'm also going to say early October Penny show. And I wrote that back in May. So just to let you know.
Whoa, really?
So yeah. So listen, in this chart, what jumps out at you for this one?
Okay.
Like,
Well,
where's this transformation we're talking about?
okay. Well, there is. I don't see particularly. This is the new moon solar eclipse, which was known as a ring of fire. And interestingly, the Middle East, the areas that we're talking about, are known as a ring of fire, which I just found extraordinary. Although the eclipse itself was not visible, as you reminded me before we started, it was not visible in any parts of the world that most of us are in. If you were on Easter Island, you would have had a great view of the ring of fire, because what happens is the moon is actually further away from planet Earth, which means it doesn't completely cover the sun. So when it goes in front of the sun, between the Earth and the sun, you get this ring of fire. And now Makemake, which is a small dwarf planet, which is a creator god, and it's all about food and grain and regeneration.
It's the nurturing goddess for them, right? Yeah.
Is the god, it's the god for Easter Island. They see it as I believe, I might not be right, but I think it's a
no, and it's the Rapa Nui actually found that as the fixated planet, that they felt that their island was the placement in the world connected to the Makemake star. So they thought that the map of the universe was points to go, which is why they knew that there was a world outside of their island, but they knew to stay within their island. And when they had people come from outside, that's part of why they created the statues the way they did. So that's just a little touch of the history. But yeah, back on the astrology, you got it.
Makemake was conjunct the new moon in Libra in the second house of this chart. So opposite the 8th house. Now, what's the 8th house? Death, transformation, enormous change, its secrets revealed, because, you know, by zodiac, it's a Scorpio house. So it has those qualities. It has all the Scorpio tendencies. And then look at Saturn, where in the 7th house, which can be enemies as well as loved ones. And you've got Saturn there in Pisces, conjunct Juno. And I find that fascinating, because Juno is about, this is like stabbing someone in the back.
100%. And I also think, go back to Pisces, you know, representing Saturn here. Up is down and down is up. Anything that you think is structured, you're going to pull it apart. Anything that you think used to be, the used to be ways are gone. You cannot accept them for as they are, which is why you're personally feeling these things, because the things that you used to be able to do, whether it be your self-medication or whatever, you can't do anymore. And then you have the idea of like, okay, well, what are you going to fill it with next? What are you going to represent? You know, what are you going to spend your time on now that you no longer waste it? And that's part of what's going on here too. But representative to Israel, though, the friends and the enemies thing is that's their existence since 1947. It's always been about us versus them, which I can't imagine living like that. But here we are.
But also, you know, and here we are. But it's like it's actually been going on for over 2,000 years. This is a battle that never seems to have an end. It's almost like a myth, a fairy story of, you know, there is something I think highly symbolic about the eye for the eye, the tooth for the tooth. I have a friend.
Hammurabi's code. It was a shortcut to decide things for other people. When Hammurabi ruled this area, it was all about saying all things are equal. It was actually socialism to a T, but it was you being able to say, like, if you take this, you lose your hand, whatever the afflicted part is. And it was brutal. It was brutal. I mean, Justinian's law replaced it later, but you know, one thing that I notice here with the Israel chart, and it's Israel's birth chart, and just to explain to everybody, the setup of this chart is we went with Israel's birth date, right? Where it came into effect, where it was a territory, and then it formally became a land, you know, its own country. How about what else is going on here in the 7th house?
Well,
with Juno.
With Juno. Well, Juno is about commitment and relationship. It's much more about commitment than Venus is. Venus represents relationship, but Venus is much more the divine feminine. Venus is much more the idealized love, whereas Juno is, I think, much more the romantic, profane love.
Yeah.
And what Saturn basically conjunct Juno. So you've got, I just think you have something two-faced going on here,
Yeah.
about not being able to trust anyone. And I want to point out also that the country is going through the same thing that I'm going through, with Uranus conjunct its natal sun in Taurus,
Mhm.
in the ninth house. You know what I think is going to ultimately happen?
Yeah,
I,
let's go there.
I think this country's borders are going to extend,
Mm.
because that is the shock and that is the surprise, and that is what nobody thinks can happen.
Well, I'm going to go a step further, because as much as you can talk about certain strips, and you can talk about heights, and you can talk about different places, this is also going to be a dialogue of going beyond those borders. And it's almost like, somebody mentioned the Suez Canal is effectively closed right now, and it should be, because
Yeah.
for whatever reasons. But the Sinai Peninsula was originally supposed to be Israel's, and that's still a bone of contention. The David Peace Accords, thank you very much, Jimmy Carter, really kind of allowed Israel to kind of be, Egypt saying, we need stability here. Egypt did the stability thing. They were like, listen, we're more stable than you. We should run this because we need to our economies are going to tank otherwise. And Israel understood that. The United States certainly understood it. Where we're at now, though, they might be nitpicking things up through Jordan, which is not going to fly well. Lebanon certainly, has always been the bone of contention. And one of the things to realize, too, one of the things that Israel has had to deal with, and this goes back to the relationship component, they're dealing with two conflicted fronts that are basically for the same thing, but they don't like each other.
Mm.
So you have two Palestinian organizations that are basically feuding with one another and then feuding with Israel at the same time, and they're trying to one-up themselves. So as much as I have some sympathy, I certainly have empathy for the entire thing, but as much as I may be sympathetic towards Israel at times, there's a lot of infighting where if you don't know who you are, how are you going to be good for somebody else? Which, by the way, that is exactly what we're going through right now. We're trying to figure out how to be good for ourselves so we can be good for others. And I think Israel's going through the same thing, along with the Palestinian organizations.
But also, along with, if you think about Makki as conjunct the new moon, look at their natal Neptune. It's conjunct the new moon. It's conjunct Lilith. It's conjunct Mercury. It's the second house about my house, your house, my values, my property, my accruement. And it's kind of like trying to find the balance. And to me, it's like, you hit me, I'll hit you back harder.
Yeah, and well, obviously, this is the point of emphasis. So, representatively, all these transits, the outer part of the chart, going through the second house right now, is everybody trying to get their piece of this pie. Where Israel in its creation has Neptune there, which is a great placement when you think about it. But it's also so idealistic. It's like the reality of the situation is nobody's going to be happy.
And look at that pent up rage in the 12th house, right? Where you've got Pluto, Saturn, Mars, Pluto and Saturn conjunct in Leo, and Mars also in Leo. Okay. Their ascendant is Virgo. So they do worry about things. They get quite anxious about things and quite nitpicky. My God, inside, the inner rage is absolutely massive. Is what I feel from the chart.
It's the house of the undoing. It's if their anger or greed gets in the way, this is the problem. And listen, this isn't about turning the other cheek. This isn't about, Israel was born out of the lessons of World War II. It was born out of the idea that had there been a safe space here, or had there been an agreement in place for
Hello. Hello.
Being kind to whatever organization or people we think we can get over on. It's awful. It's awful.
Mm,
But this in the 12th house, the positive spin on it is that, you know what? This is also hopes and dreams,
yeah.
right?
Well, more the 11th house is hopes and dreams. The 12th house is where we feel restricted, imprisoned. It's where we have to go within, whether we like it or not. We've got to go back
Right.
into the woods again, and then we start again when with Aries, where we go into the, start the whole journey again. So it's a little bit like the journey of the tarot. You've got Aries, you could say, is the fool, and it goes all the way round. And do you see what I mean?
You've got to push yourself. And if you read it like a hope of optimism,
Mm,
you can say like, what are your hopes for power? What is power? That's what Pluto is saying here. What is structure? That's what Saturn is saying.
mm,
What is something you're going to fight for? That's what Mars is representing, right?
mm,
And
yeah.
that's the entire, to me, this is where Israel is really going to be the center focus for so many things. If they get this right,
Mm,
and everybody's going to be a pundit now. Everybody's a Monday morning quarterback after the Super Bowl and a bombing. But if they get this right, this could arguably be a leader in so many other things, right? It's
yes.
interesting placement to me.
Yeah, I mean, there are things I would like to say, but I know I can't say because there are certain things one can't say. So I'll just
Yeah,
have to leave it as cryptic.
I'm gonna,
But
I'm
I,
gonna get a text later.
I think, thank you. I
And
look forward.
I'll say it on my channel because I don't care. I
But
don't care.
ultimately, I actually think these are the good guys, and I think they are. Let me see how I can put it. Um, Attempting to do a service for all of us.
But is there ego in place?
That,
And this is the pro and the con to it, Penny.
that's
It's
the problem. That's the problem.
and it's like are they being a martyr?
Candidates.
Are they being a martyr about it? Look at all that we've done for you.
Yeah.
Uh, come on, you're not working together. At the end of the day, if there's a criticism of Israel, it's that they've done a very poor job at working together,
Mm.
but it's been justified because they're stockpiling weapons instead of the food for it's an awful turn of events, right? So
Yeah.
your one hand is washing the other, and who's going to break the cycle? In this is where the opportunity of an eclipse, which happened a few days ago,
Mm.
this eclipse is allowing you to say, listen, no holds, no bar. This is what your point of emphasis are.
Yeah.
Who's going to step up and say, that's it, we're not going to fight anymore?
Mm.
Do they have it in them? Do any of them have it in them? They've been so conditioned and so ingrained.
That's a very easy answer. No.
Why? What do you see?
Why? Because, first of all, what was set in place on whichever day it was that this happened, I think it was, it was when I was doing my live stream on Tuesday, which got interrupted. And I think it was because I couldn't do my live stream for the month ahead
Yeah.
because there was so much traffic on the internet, because it was when all the missiles were going overland to the destination, and there was just a lot of traffic on the internet, so I couldn't get on the internet.
We have
So
to get one of
what I,
those links. I'm
yeah,
going to call Elon and make sure that you get one of those satellite links so we don't have that interruption.
that's a good idea. What I want to say, though, is remember, eclipses are a point in time which set a tone or a scene for several weeks and several months. So this is not something that is going to be resolved quickly or speedily. And I think it might be quite interesting to move on to another chart now, because
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to, what's happening at the moment. And actually, you pointed it out on one of my videos where you said, I don't think we want to look at that one. I think we've got too much. Actually, let's look at this one. I tell you why. because we need to know what you over the pond are going to do, if anything.
Well, since we're so busy infighting, and by the way, this is a jump ahead to the full moon here in a couple of weeks because we have so many things that are in cross section here. We're going to save like the U.S. election thing for another video because it's too jam packed.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind that that's like our operating system right now.
Yeah.
You know, having a full moon in Aries, of course, this is when the sun is in opposition to the moon, to the moon. The moon politely sits, and I do mean politely, sits in the We Are family house. It's in the 4th house.
Yeah.
The sun is in the 11th house by contrast, by the way that the houses work, right? We're into a later an upper number, which puts a point of emphasis to we got to get this done. We got to get it right. We got to get it right. Right. We kind of talk about this in so many dynamics, right? Mm-hmm. Well, don't forget the 4th house for the United States, and rightfully so, is sitting there with Chiron. Give me your tired, give me your poor. Let us heal and fix the wounds, right? The United States isn't in a position, though, to start saying, we're going to help you guys out. We're going to talk through it. We're going to go by path. We're going to do whatever it is we think we can do. But this full moon in Aries is just going to emphasize the wounds of the world. We're actually not going to make it better. I'm sorry, United States. But I think the Western world, I think there's a part of this, and I'm not a big fan of isolationism as a whole, but there are some things where you, quote unquote, mind your own business. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. There are moments like this. But notice we also have our Pluto return. We're coming close to this. We're still conjunct. Yeah. As a country, we're still conjunct with this. So we're asking the questions. Who are we to our moral and ethical product? Where are we to what is power? Anytime you see Pluto, say, what is power? And do we see ourselves as a foundational piece of that? Kind of, but we're not in a place. It's kind of like when you meet somebody that says, hey, listen, I could really use some help. And you're like, sure, anything. And then they're like, I need $1 million. And we're like, I never had $1 million. Why would I be able to give you $1 million? Well, then you think of all the things that you could have done to get $1 million over the years and be right in that moment. And again, it's a very unrealistic thing, but you look at how you're not prepared for that moment. The United States is not prepared to be what we perceive as a leadership. And this is an aha moment for the United States to be like, we are so full of crap. We talk a good meeting, we talk a good whatever, and we just got decimated by a hurricane here. Decimated. When I say decimated, I mean there are people missing. There's activations of missing person stuff that I'm not prepared to work with right now. Yeah. And we're in a position where we're refined. We have departments for this. We have these things. And we're hitting go, and it's still slow going. But that's our system right now. We're getting exposed. And again, I'm not saying the United States is bad, but we're getting exposed where our processes aren't up to the standards that we boast about. That's it. It's not that it's bad. It's not that we're not trying. It's not that we're whatever. But if you're going to be the sheriff in the world, you better shine your badge. And that's where we're at right now.
And I think what's interesting with the full moon is that it has a cardinal grand cross. So you've got this tension, and it's between Pluto now direct at 29 degrees of Capricorn, and between the sun at 24 degrees of Libra and the moon at 27 degrees of Aries. It's not quite exact. I've got the timing a bit wrong when I did because I did it so quickly.
When it comes to Pluto, we're there, and we're in the Anar, the 29th degree Anar with Pluto.
And then we've got Mars at 22 degrees of the cardinal sign of Cancer. And Mars is now in what's known as its shadow zone because it goes retrograde a little bit later on in the year. And so Mars in the 8th house, the USA's 8th house, and Jupiter retrograde now, transiting Jupiter conjunct the natal Mars of the US chart in the 7th house.
We love our wars. You know,
Oh,
it's funny how we, you know, where it was recently boasted that we don't have any active military in a conflict zone, which is just like really. I mean, great progress, I guess. But can you explain a little bit why the cardinal cross though is so significant for this transformation? Like
okay.
cardinal is the initiator, right?
Yes.
What else? What else does you read that it's Mars and Pluto and the Sun and the Moon?
And Neptune. I missed Neptune out. It's Neptune. I'm just hang on. I'm just going to do something on my chart alone so that I'm just going to look at the full moon because I'm getting confused.
Well, I'll talk for a second about, you know, the importance of the cardinal sign. So
I'm ready. You can talk about the cardinal signs, but I'm ready.
yeah, let's kind of set this so then, you know, I'll set you Spike. It's you know, it's something where, you know, the fixed signs are fixed, like you're stuck, you know, you're not really sure. The mutable signs are kind of fixers in terms of like, you know, you finally might have to fix something if you're really influenced by mutable signs. With the cardinal signs, it's about initiating something new. So there's two things that have to happen when you initiate something new. You have to recognize that there was a problem to begin with, which is the number one challenge, you know, for most people, alone in an entire country. And then the second part is not to get caught up on the issue, but to get caught up in the solution. And cardinal signs help you get caught up in a solution. Now, you might not be able to see it through, right? Cardinals are great initiators. They don't necessarily always finish the race, but they say this is the direction we're supposed to go in. So cool. So Penny, what about your recalibration there? What are you thinking?
Okay, so what I'm thinking is this cardinal grand cross, it pulls in both the Sun and Juno. So there is something here about, will you guys please talk to each other? Will you relate? Will you find some balance? Will you somehow sit across a table and talk? So there's something for me very much about the need to communicate, which we know anyway. I mean, it goes without saying. And then you've got Mars. Now, this is the big one, the biggie. Mars-Pluto direct opposition. Mm-hmm. Mars in Cancer at 22 degrees in opposition to Pluto at 29 degrees direct in Capricorn. You know, Pluto has now gone direct, and we are never going to have in our lifetimes, anyone who's alive now, we will not experience it.
Not unless you're going to be 240 years old.
Exactly. And Mars is the god of war. Cancer is home. Pluto in Capricorn is saying, and before I leave this institution, I am just going to make sure that I have tidied up the changes that need to happen and brought down the traditional ways of doing things which no longer serve what we should be doing. It is what?
No, you are nailing it. You are nailing it because you're also talking about, this is all about action.
Yeah.
This chart is about action.
And this is 8th to the 2nd house. This Mars opposite Pluto is the real danger thing, and it's all caught together with the full moon and the sun. So you've got this full moon, which brings endings, conclusions, resolutions. It's still within the energy of the new moon eclipse because we still are on the Aries Libra axis. So you still got that energy and this cardinal energy. So there is something here about the restraint required, which I think comes from it's almost like things are going to happen over the next couple of weeks where people are going to be, you know how if there's two people in in a bar late at night and they're spoiling for a fight, and their friends are holding them both back from hitting each other and knocking each other out. It has that kind of tension about it. It's like someone has to come in as a mediator and say, whoa, whoa, boys, back off, back to your corners. Let's find another way. So this cardinal grand cross is trying to hold that tension in place and saying, no, even though some things may unfold over the next couple of weeks, and I'm thinking in terms of potential problems in European capital cities. I'm not going to name anything.
No, that's a part we got to look at. Yeah.
I don't think anything will happen across the pond where you are, because that really stirs up the muddy pond. So
listen, we've got enough planned from November 6th on. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. We got plenty of stuff in store for that. An observation I want to point out, and I want to get your take on this too, because I think it's a really... Notice how this fixed cardinal cross doesn't even address communication. No. We're not in any of the communication houses. We're not in any of the dynamics that will say like, oh, and this will be easier. So now we have to kind of look at how does communication kind of run. You always look at the third house. You look at the 11th house. Yeah. So you've got Mercury here outside of being conjunct. It just moved outside of conjunct. So it's not even influencing the sun right now. We're moving away from that communication part of it. And you are trying to Saturn here, because we have two mutables, right? And again, this is a fixer-upper kind of positioning, like, okay, where are we going to go now? And then you have, and again, it's a very wide trine here, but then you've got Mars. So there is hope for this to kind of have some communication with Mercury to Saturn to Mars, which is all about the United States struggle right now. The United States struggle is about our structure and why it doesn't work. How were you allowed to have certain things happen? And again, we're going to save that for the other show. But it is not the intended consequence. It is not, it is not the intended consequence of saying that you have the right to bear arms and it looks like an AK-47 to mentally insane people. That's not the intention. That's the spirit of it. So we've got a lot of that we've got to clean up. And that trine buried in this that is going to influence it to some degree. And I think that is where we begin to say to our world pieces, we're not coming in and being the sheriff right here. We have to say there's a lot of things we've got to address here.
Yeah. It's like, this is not the time. This is not the time. And I think it would be a huge error for this to be allowed to escalate. And I think that what we have to look out for, or actually be grateful for, is that the Uranus-Pluto trine is actually a trine. So the shocks, surprises may be unusual help from somewhere, unusual effects, because there's no doubt that our sort of star country that is at the sort of the center of all of this is going to want its pound of flesh. And I also think we have to think about other dates, which I didn't think about to get a chart up for, but on Monday is the 7th of October. That is the anniversary of that massacre.
100%.
God bless 100%. Them.
And actually, speaking of moving ahead, I want to make sure we stay on time today. I moved the chart ahead to Israel with the full moon in Aries. And just as a quick recap here, again, it's that emphasis of the second house and the 8th house, or in this case, it's the 9th house. So you've got lessons being shown, with it being in the 9th house. This is kind of a rare dynamic. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe the timing's a little bit off on this, because it should be lined up at the 24th. So it should actually be in the 8th.
The timing's wrong. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. We're human. We're going to be human. So yeah, the section.
I just got so overexcited because I thought, oh yes, we must do this and we must do that, and I got overexcited.
Listen. It just lets you know that we're not AI. But with the moon being in the 8th house and the 2nd house, here we go again on our structure and other people's money. The 8th house is other people's stuff. It's death, sex, taxes, whatever. So it's the vices that we think we have to grift on other people and kind of work within. And again, that really knocks it out of the park when it comes to this actual conflict. And in turn, it's just dialed differently, right? So you got Mars in the 11th house and in the 5th house in Pluto. So that tells me that they're going to be creative about how they express power. This is going to be this is going to affect everybody. We're going to bring the war to them. The sun is going to be like, hey, listen, we got to get ours. And the moon is kind of representing like, we don't really care about your emotions. We don't really care that you might have a stake in any of this. So Israel's definitely going to be moving in a self-contained, self-satisfying way, I think. That's my quick take on the cardinal cross on that one.
Yeah. And I think what we haven't looked at, which is going to be quite useful to look at, are the nodes, because obviously the solar eclipse that we've already looked at brought in the nodes, and South Node eclipse, and the South Node is in Libra, and the South Node is more or less conjunct their natal Neptune. Now, Neptune is water. It could be the sea. It could be, things coming back from the past, which are, Neptune can be confusion, delusion, disintegration, just sort of, oh my God, okay. I just had another really crazy thought, but these thoughts come in sometimes, but I'll message you about that later. However, my crazy thought is Neptune is about viruses.
It could. It's that undercover thing of it, and don't forget the positive of Neptune too. It is hopes and dreams. Like the Israel placement of its birth time, Neptune sits right in the middle of almost unattainable world.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just the reveal of the illusions. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, God, I just hope everybody is safe.
Transiting Neptune, even though it's retrograde, it is in the 8th house, and it's widely conjunct the North Node. The North Node is where we go towards what we need to allow to unfold. It's our destiny. And Neptune, I think, representing water, intuition, gut feeling in Pisces, it rules Pisces, is something about the need for them to, I think, you see, I think in general, what I'm suggesting, which I've brought into a lot of my own videos, is about the need for the collective to raise their frequency, so that it's for all of us to not feed the negative fears of what could happen with this particular situation in the Middle East, but actually let's look at how we can affect it with positive intent, that we can actually raise our frequency, our vibration, because we're having all these solar flares. And these solar flares, solar storms are affecting us much more now. We've got all these neutrinos piling through our bodies. We've got, plasma being hurled out at planet Earth. And we're learning so much more about our place in our solar system. And I think what's interesting, and I have to credit my teacher, Alison Chester Lambert, for this, because she did a video yesterday which was about the second moon that we have coming in at the moment. And it's basically a very small asteroid that has got...
And people that aren't familiar with this, there is an asteroid that is coming into our atmosphere that is our moon is going to get a moon, basically. Right? That's what we're talking about.
Our moon is going to continue doing what it does, going round.
Right.
And the second moon, in inverted commas, has joined the orbit of the Earth.
Yep.
It's only here for something like 52 or 53 days. If viewers want to go to Alison Chester Lambert's channel and check out her video from yesterday, she talks about it in depth and explains a little bit about the astronomy of it. However, she also said, which is what I love her for, because I totally agree, of course, there is symbolism with
Yeah.
this coming in. It's about something comes back. So you can all take this on a personal level as well. What is going to come back into your life for a short while, a couple of months, for you to look at, for you to reflect on? You know, it's an asteroid. It's a positive, powerful symbol, and it's almost like it's coming. What I first thought when I heard about it was, I'm not a. I mean, I was brought up as a Church of England person, but I don't so I've been surrounded by Christianity all my life. But I call myself spiritual now, and I just call God the divine. The divine for me is the divine of everything. However,
and by the way, therapist Penny, we'll just talk about your coping mechanisms with religion later.
However, what I want to say, which I think is super interesting, is that if you remember, and this is what is super exciting, when Christ was born, okay, there was a star that appeared in the sky that the three magi, the three astrologers, followed to Bethlehem to find where this person, this Christ, had been born. Now, if we take the symbolism of that, of the nativity, is this about someone comes in for us on the world stage, maybe a leader from the past, or a leader, I don't know, but maybe somebody steps in and says, okay, guys, enough of this SH1T. Let's get this show on the road. Let's get this all sorted out. I'm here almost like if it was a James Bond film, you know, Mr. Bond would come in and kind of save the planet. It has that essence to me of something comes in to divert our attention from looking down to looking up.
Yeah. It took you a little bit to get there, but that last statement was really the crux of it. It's what are we actually paying attention to? What are we actually allowing ourselves to feel comfortable with? And I think the thing that you bring up, first of all, it's not just any Bond, it's Sean Connery. Am I right or am I right? Well, come on, there we go. I mean, the rest of them were okay, but
I'm Mrs. Moneypenny. I'm Miss Moneypenny.
And now you're mine. Oh my gosh. I'm a secret agent. I'm a secret agent addicted to coffee.
I knew it.
But the aspect of it, though, of the reflection of like, why is this happening now? You can't escape divine timing. You just can't. You can't ghost a medium, and you can't deny the evidence once you realize it. And that is the difference between things that are like low-hanging fruit and sit in front of you, and the things that hit you like an epiphany. And that's the part that we're at right now. We're genuinely in a position where the things that weren't obvious are becoming I never noticed that before, or hey, I never realized that. And we're waking up to feelings and emotions that we never knew we had, and we can begin to attach them to different things like our healing or the empathy that we should be feeling, which is why, when I looked at all of the conflict going on, it was an in-your-face thing to be like, am I used to this because I hear about a bombing in that part of the world every so often? Or is this really it? And it's like, is it a common distraction, or do we really need to start looking for things? And by the way, I did a video a couple of years ago now about the grand conjunct of essentially 4 AD, where it represented the conjunct of Jupiter and Saturn. And when Jupiter and Saturn get together, it forms a star. Like it's as bright as any of the other stars in the sky.
Yeah.
So there is divine timing in some of this, right? And we're still quoting the Bible, which is incredibly flawed for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which it only covers about 1,200 kilometers of the earth when there's the whole rest of the earth to consider. But the fact that it talks about astrology so clearly as a marker, and now what you just said is a clear indicator of astrology and astronomy stepping in and saying, notice me, look at me.
Yes.
We got to pay attention.
Yes.
And what's going to happen in Israel? I'm going to give it to you in a nutshell. And this is a summary of Penny's words as well. They got to dig deep and figure out if they want to be the aggressor or they want to be peace. That simple. It's no third direction. And when they've been complacent, they've been taken advantage of, and everybody's to blame. And we've got to get used to accepting people's duality. Have you ever met somebody? Here's a dirty secret. Everybody you've ever met has done something that they are incredibly ashamed about, and you wouldn't talk to them if you knew it. Remember that conversation, Penny? Oh my God.
No, don't go there. Please
you were still drinking whiskey, and let me tell you something. I can't believe
our conversation. I remember it.
Right on the bandstand. Anyway, so but it's like we have to start to accept duality. We have to start saying, yeah, the country's imperfect, but what are we going to do today? We get fixated on the problem and not the solution. That's the key here. That is what the astrology is showing us. Don't get fixated on the problem. Get fixated on the solution. The Cardinal Grand Cross is saying, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You wake up in a pool of your own stuff and you're a raging alcoholic. What are you going to do about it? You've already drank the stuff. You did something that you shouldn't have done, and you're waking up to the consequences of what are you going to do tomorrow? One of the things that we are so bombastically mad about our leadership in our country is that when they do something wrong, they never hold themselves accountable. They never raised their hand and said, that didn't look good. And I'm not talking about any one particular person. It is a broad brush stroke. Say to you, one of the things that are so endearing to some of the candidates now is they're like, yeah, you know what? I could have handled that better. Okay, I'm going to work with that guy. Because that's somebody that has a high emotional IQ and brings things out. And I just want to give a shout out, and I want to get Penny your thoughts on this too. Jot your questions down. We're going to talk for another couple of minutes, and we want to take a couple of questions here at the end.
We've got only 5 minutes left. Also, yes, I agree, everyone. I love Daniel Craig as well. I think he's hot. So
there's a 1 and there's a 1A, right? So,
look
at that.
Hello.
Good. Do you get weirded out when you see yourself still?
It's really funny.
Forever and a day, I'm like that, with the old headshot that's like 5 years old now. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to change that. And then I go,
that's a year ago, but I'm going to do some more photos in the next.
Well, you look great. This is a reminder for you to go and register on Penny's website. Make sure you get her awesome newsletter. Make sure that you get her stuff. She's got continuous stuff like classes. She's also going to give you show notes of what's coming, whether you're catching her Astro Bites or her Sundays Lives and that sort of thing. And I think you're skipping this week, right?
Well, I think, guys, I probably won't do the live stream tomorrow night. But I'll put a post out on YouTube and just tell you what my thoughts are, because I might do a short video just to tell you what I'm thinking of my program over the next kind of couple of months, because I've got to do all the, or at least I want to do, I'm choosing to do the 2025 zodiac signs for every single sign. And if I overload myself with too much work, because I get so super excited about all of this, I will not be able to get all those done. And I've still got a book I'm trying to write. So I'm going to have to, what I'm going to do, guys, is cut back a bit on the Astrobites, probably 3 a week. You'll still get,
by the way, which is really great. I mean, doing 3, I think, is the right number, but that's me.
I think 3 a week, including the word of the day. and it'll be a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I'm actually going to upload them so they are visible much earlier, so that, because I always forget about the Far East and Australia, which is very amiss of me. So anyone who's watching this in replay, I'm going to make sure that the astrobites are up early enough for you to catch them. And then that means over the next month or so, I can get the zodiac signs done for 2025 and an overview. I will do a live stream next Sunday, but not tomorrow, because I think I need another day of rest. Over to you, Brandon.
And listen, that's one of the things that like we struggle with, because there's so much that we see in astrology where we're like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. Oh my gosh, we got to get to it. Oh my gosh, we got to go live. Remember the time where you were like calling me at like 5 a.m. my time going, we've got to do this. It was I think it was a Putin thing. It was like a Putin assassination attempt or something. They're like, oh my gosh, you got to do this. Listen, make sure you get a couple of questions out there. I know you guys have them. And I'm going to remind you that I have my Astrology 101 class. This is actually your ability to dive into your personal chart. That's how people learn. They learn it from their own perspective. So you're going to pick apart everything from where your placements are to help understand that. And then you're going to be given homework as you exit the class to start to do other people's charts. So you really kind of deepen this. I've been teaching this stuff for a long time. I love to explain it. I love to make it, help you kind of dive in. 2/22 until the end of the weekend. Hope you guys jump into that. It's a fun thing. So Pluto and Aquarius, people are talking about that. Not enough hours in the day. That's the way we go behind here.
And Annabelle, haven't looked at it, but
I'm going to bring that one up.
I think it's a big story waiting to come out, Annabelle. It is time consuming doing the Astro Bites. So I'm just going to, from next week, there'll be one on Monday, then it'll be Wednesday and Friday. And then at least I can start planning the 2025 videos. And next year is going to be another woo year.
Yeah. The calm that you guys felt in the last couple of weeks, but I hope you can draw back to it. So Annabelle brings up the scandals in Britain about Al Fayed. The misdemeanors towards women. I mean, this is something else that you're going to hear. You heard another country star come out here with their stuff. You're going to see a lot of things kind of get revealed. And one of the things that are some of it's personal accountability, but see how they react to it. See how they say, well, no, that's kind of whatever. Are they going to be bombastic and say, well, they're objects. That's what they're there for. Or are they going to say yeah, you know what? That wasn't a good look for me. That wasn't, you got to do things different. You got to expend it differently in a different way. And listen, people talk about, making mistakes, and people talk about, the idea of.
There's an interesting question. Sorry to interrupt you. Will we have a peaceful transfer of power? Kathy Riddle.
Kathy, how are you?
We're going to do a video about this, aren't we? So.
Yeah, we're gonna get together in another couple of weeks. Stay tuned. I love the response. There's been so many of you on the channel. Thank you so much. Be sure to click like and subscribe. There's a lot of things. Is there going to be a peaceful transfer of power? Well, this will be a teaser for the next one.
Maggie, Dodie's dad. Yeah.
Donald Trump isn't campaigning anymore.
I'm talking over you.
It's okay. I'm sorry. I said Donald Trump isn't campaigning anymore. Really? That should tell you everything. Oh, he hasn't. No, the two dastardly things that he's doing is the only places he's going to are sundown towns, sundown cities, which, if you're not familiar with that is, sundown are the old laws that made sure that minorities were out of the city by the end of the day, that they could only come and work and they had to be out of there.
Wow.
And there are still active laws on the books, this is the stuff I'm talking about. This is the stuff the United States has to really get its act together. We still have laws on the books that literally say African Americans, Italian Americans, Asians can't own land. We literally have laws on the books still with that. That's the stuff we need to kind of do. So what is a peaceful transfer of power? The acceptance of responsibility. Not everybody gets a trophy, guys.
But we will talk about that. But I also want to answer Ravina's question about any thoughts on the climate and especially the ocean's health. You're very worried. I think that that's too big a question to kind of cover here, but yeah, my feeling is, in general, planet Earth will always win. We are a parasite, and if we mess up planet Earth too much, she will get rid of us.
She doesn't need us, everybody.
No.
Yeah. And by the way, if you're interested in understanding sundown laws and sundown cities, just do a quick search. There's whole websites attached to it. It is also where the number one level of gerrymandering is, where voting rights are being taken away and voting rights are being set.
What doesn't Maggie believe? She's saying she doesn't believe that, Brandon. What did you mean, Maggie? Oh, we're losing the signal.
About sundown laws, yeah. It is pretty unbelievable. But sundown laws are still on the books. And they're not enforced necessarily all the time, but there's still, why would you still have that institutional racism, in a town, right?
Mm.
And it's very presented. Yeah. And back on the Mother Earth part of it and the climate change and everything else. Like I said, the United States just got decimated. The Southeast area.
So has Europe. So has Europe. We've had terrible floods.
Yeah.
Also, Annabelle, I absolutely agree with you about what Melania said about women's rights to abortion. Absolutely. I so admire her for that.
Yeah. And it's comeuppance time, by the way. Also on October 17th is a very significant date here in the United States, because that is the day that Donald Trump is supposed to get sentenced.
That's the full moon, isn't it?
Yep.
Whoa. And we have reached the end of our time slot.
I love how we keep each other in check. I freaking love it.
Well, talking about boundaries, that Pluto energy,
people will do 102. People will do 103. Don't you worry. Well, Penny,
listen, I just got to tell you, Parry is the most wonderful follower. Please, Parry, if you're not subscribed to Brandon's channel, please do. He's a lovely guy.
Love the connection.
Nice.
Well, Penny, I think we should do this again. What do you say?
I think you should. Yeah.
I love seeing you. I am forever your number one fan. And I love everything that you're doing, and keep doing it.
Thank you. And you do the same, because you've changed a lot in the last couple of years. You're growing up. Well, we're all growing up, aren't we?
I was ready to do it.
I'm absolutely very proud of you, Brandon Ross.
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate who you are in my life. So that's why we should be doing this stuff. And whenever we find time, we do. And I think having this purpose to explain astrology in the simplest terms, to not be fear-based, and to, you and I prove that there's a wavelength on this earth that is supposed to work.
Yeah.
It's
like Pam Gregory says.
Yeah.
Everything should be for the highest good of the self and the highest good of all.
And we're going to leave right there, guys. Heart taps. Heart taps, love.
Heart
all right.
tap.
We'll see you guys
for being there. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff. Share,
Rock and roll. We'll see you guys soon. Thanks again. Keep going.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.